Good morning, all of you. So the live stream will start in a few moments. Please have some patience. We'll be starting within a minute or so. Good afternoon, all of you. So far, only 40 students have joined within time. Okay, let us begin today's session. In the last class, we were, um, what were we discussing? We were discussing cascading style sheets, different types of style sheets and all, right? Am I right? Okay. Still, so many people are trying to join. Shweta, Shweta, ఈ ఫోన్ ఇవ్వు. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome back, all of you. I have a little technical issue due to which I'm unable to start. So I'm going to start now in 2 minutes. So have some patience. This is the reason why I ask all of you to join the class early so that we don't have any problems or issues in the last minute. So is my screen visible to all of you now? Am I audible? Someone please text me. And all of you please text your roll numbers also. Even if you have texted earlier when you joined, you text it again one more time. Am I audible? Okay, please text your roll numbers, all of you. Meanwhile, all of you, please text your roll numbers. Meanwhile, I'm going to start the class. So, my screen is visible, right? Is the screen visible? Okay. So, I even shared. I even shared. Uh, 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 I I even shared the YouTube live link also in WhatsApp group. If anyone is unable to join the class, you can watch it live. Okay, fine. Uh, we have seen different types of styling called inline styling, internal styling, external styling, and all. Right. And also, I gave you the syntax of selectors and how to create a selector and where to create it and all. So now today, let us see different types of selectors. Okay, types of selectors, CSS. So let me first also um, recollect the definition for selector, or what is the purpose of a selector and what is a selector. Basically, a selector in CSS or in cascading style sheets is an entity which will select, as its name indicates, it is going to select one or more HTML tags in your HTML document and apply a style created earlier with the help of that selector. So it is going to apply that style for that particular one or more HTML. So what is the selector going to contain is, as per its syntax, it is going to contain some set of properties and their values. Each separated property and value is separated by a colon symbol, and multiple properties and their value sets they are separated with a semicolon. Okay, so basically the selector will have uh, a name, so we call it as selector name as per syntax, and then an opening brace and closing brace. In between this, you'll have property name, first property and its value, value one. Then second property, its name, its value. So together, this property name and its value together they are called as property value pairs. Okay, property value pairs. Fine. So in that way, you can have as many property names and their values, each separated by a semicolon like this. So this is one pair of property name value, and this is another pair of property name value. And what is this property going to do is, it is nothing but one feature of a HTML page or HTML tag. And using attributes in HTML tags, we apply some effects to those HTML tags like a line attribute, background color, BG color attribute, right? Uh, So they apply some effect, some kind of effect to a basic HTML tag. So instead of using those HTML attributes, we can use properties in place of them in a CSS selector. And whenever you give a specific value for that property, so based on the what value you have given, the effect of that HTML tag display will change. Okay. So that is a property name and value pair. So this is the syntax that we have seen. So now let us get back to these types of selectors in CSS. So basically you have element selector, first one. This is the first type of selector. And then you have ID selector. Then you have class selector. Then you have group selector. And then finally you have universal selector. Okay. So let me discuss about all these five different types of selectors in CSS with examples. So already we have seen what is an element selector, in the previous class when I introduced cascading style shapes and selectors, and I showed you how to create a selector using inline styling, internal styling, and external styling, right? So there I have already used one kind of selector there, and that selector is nothing but the element selector. So what is an element selector means? An element selector, as its name indicates, what is an element in HTML? HTML tags, opening tag and closing tag together, what we call it as? We call it as an element, right? So these HTML tags or elements have some name. And if the HTML tag name is matching with the selector name, then we call that selector as a element selector. That means you have a paragraph tag. So what is the name of the paragraph tag? P. So if you're giving selector name as P, then we call such selector as element selector. So what is an element selector means? An element selector will have a name which is exactly matching with any of the tag names in HTML. Hello, you're unable to see the screen. Isn't it my again? Long back. See, I've shared YouTube live. I think if anyone is if you're having problem, so first let us do one thing. All of you, if you have texted your roll numbers, you can quit this Google Meet and then uh, click on that YouTube link and watch it live. So anyhow, I'm telecasting it live. So please for today, because I'm having some technical problem. If you have texted your roll number, please you can leave this Google Meet and join YouTube live. So let us go ahead from this YouTube for today because of this technical issue. I'll get it solved by today evening so that we'll not have any problem tomorrow's session. So let us continue the class for today here in YouTube. So every selector has a name, and if the name of the selector is exactly matching with the name of an element of a HTML, then we call such a selector as a element selector. Right? Then coming to an ID selector, so this is very simple. Element selector is very simple, so nothing much to discuss about it, and we have already used this element selector in the previous session. So anyhow, we are going to see some example programs also. So there you can understand. Then coming to this ID selector, This ID selector, it is actually used to uniquely select only one HTML tag in your HTML document and apply that style that you created under that selector only to that particular HTML tag uh, uh, we want to apply. Right? So what is this element selector going to do? Let me write it up here first and then come back to ID selector. Uh, Let me put here the selector name exactly matches with HTML tag document, right? And how this is going to work means the style created under selector will be applied to all the tags which have same name as that of the selector, right? So what do you mean by that? So which means that, say for example, I'm creating in place of the selector, I'm using say P. So now this is an example of an element selector. And in my HTML document, if I create say two paragraph tags, so I'm creating two paragraph tags. This is say first paragraph, and then I'm creating another paragraph. Say this is second paragraph. Okay? So in this way, how many paragraph tags you define in your HTML document, all those paragraphs will be applied with this style that is created under this element selector. Okay? So this is about element selector, and coming to ID selector, let me write out here. So an ID selector, what it does is uh, uniquely identifies one tag the entire HTML document and apply style to only that particular tag. Okay? Getting double voices. See, if someone is already there in Google Meet, and then if you have switched on your microphone or anything, then the same audio that you are able to see, listen there, again will be echoing here. So please mute your audios, all of you. So all of you log out from that and then watch on YouTube. Otherwise, you'll get that double voice that is echoing. So you'll get that echo that way. So now, what is ID selector going to do is it is going to uniquely identify one tag in the entire HTML document and apply the style to only that particular tag. But to do this, what it is going to do is it uses ID attribute. So there is an attribute in HTML that can be used for any HTML tag. do this. Okay, so let me show it with an example below. Say, for example, this is the syntax. The selector name must be preceded with a hash symbol. Say I want to apply a style that I'm going to create using this selector with, say, mm, say my style. So this is the name of the selector I'm going to give. Okay. So here under this I'm going to create, say, background color, let's say blue color, then simple color to be a white color. Right? Then in my HTML document, in whichever for whichever tag I want to apply this uh, this style that I created now, for that particular tag, say for example, if I want to apply this to a h1 tag, then in this h1 tag I have to use an attribute called id attribute. So this id attribute in HTML, it can be used with any HTML tag. And what must be the value of this id attribute is exactly whatever name you have given for this selector, excluding that hash symbol. So you should not include that hash symbol. Only the name of the selector you have to mention here. So what is this hash symbol going to say means, hash symbol indicates that this style that you're creating, this selector that you have created, is an ID selector, right? If it is an element selector, you will not have this hash symbol or any other symbol. But for ID selector, you'll have a preceding hash symbol and then followed by that the name of the selector. So this is name of the selector. What is the name of the selector here? My style. And this name will not match with any HTML tag. So you cannot use any HTML tag name here. You have to use any name of your choice. You can give any name of your choice. Coming to this element selector, what will be the name of the selector? It will be exactly matching with any of the HTML tags. Other than HTML tag names, you cannot give any other name for the element selector. Coming to this ID selector, the name of the selector is our choice. You can give any name which is not same as that of the HTML tags, right? So now how to use that in a particular tag means, to whichever tag you want to apply this style, that tag name, the opening tag of that tag, you have to use this id attribute, and you have to mention the value of this id attribute as the name of the selector that you created. So now this style will be applied only for this particular h1 tag. So don't try to use this id attribute and its value same for any other tag, right? Use it only for one tag, because by creating this id selector, what is the purpose is, we want this style to be applied only for one particular tag, not all the tags. You may have more than one heading tag. Say you may have another h1 tag, you may have another h1 tag, but you don't want this style to be applied for this h1 tag. You want some other style to be applied, or you want only the style to be applied only to this h1 tag, not to this second h1 tag, right? So that is the meaning of uniquely identify. Uniquely means what? Only one. Just like your roll number is unique in your entire class or even in college, so even the ID attribute value also must be unique. It must be given only for one HTML tag. It cannot be given for multiple HTML tags. Right? So for this ID attribute, you can give another one. You can give my style one like this, another name. So you create a different ID selector and give that ID selector name for this H1. So don't try to use the same ID selector name for multiple tags with their attribute values, with their ID attribute values same, right? So give different. Okay. So this is ID selector, and then now let us go to class selector. So class selector. So this is what is this going to do is, uh, it selects group of HTML tags, a document, and apply the style all those tags, right? So what is this going to do? This is going to apply, unlike ID selector, which is going to apply the style only for one particular HTML tag. For that HTML tag, we need to use ID attribute value same as that of the selector name, ID selector name, right? And coming to class selector, this selects a group of HTML tags, not one HTML tag. Unlike unique ID selector, it selects multiple HTML tags and apply the style to all those multiple HTML tags. So for this purpose, what it uses is just like ID attribute is used for applying ID selector. We use another attribute called class attribute. Okay, HTML do this. Right now, how to create a class selector? So this is ID selector. Okay, and now let me show you class selector example. Coming to class selector, uh, preceding the selector name, just like for ID selector, you have a hash symbol. For a class selector, you'll have a dot symbol, right? So you can create like this, my style one. So let me create this. A teal color and white foreground color is white color. Okay. So now you can use and apply this style for multiple HTML documents. They need not be both H1 tags or all H1 tags or all paragraph tags. You can apply this style for, say, you can apply this for H1 tag, use an attribute called class, and for this class attribute, you can use my style one like this, the name of the class selector that we created here, excluding this dot symbol. Use the selector name my style one. I'm leaving the content of the tags empty. Here, the important thing to understand here is how to use this class selector in your HTML tag. So it doesn't matter what content is there in between the HTML tags now. So you can see with an example program that. But basically, to understand, to make you understand, I'm giving you some examples here. Now I can use the same uh, selector, class selector for another tag, say paragraph tag also I can use. So I use my style one same value here also. We create a paragraph like this. I can even use it for ordered list also. Well, so in that way, I can apply this style for multiple different types of tags. You need not apply this style only for all H1 tags, right? Or all paragraph tags or all ordered list tags. You can apply it for different types of tags. You can apply the style for one H1 tag, another paragraph tag, and another ordered list tag, or any other table tag or anything. For all those tags, you can apply the same style. So as I mentioned, what is a class selector? Class selector selects group of HTML tags. Group of HTML tags means more than one HTML tag. And when you say more than one HTML tag, that more than one HTML tags need not be all H1 tags or all paragraph tags or all OL tags. So when you select only all H1 tags, we say all those tags are similar tags, right? If there are 10 H1 tags, for example, in your HTML document, so all those H1 tags, even though they are multiple in number, they are similar. All of them are H1s, right? So if you are selecting the group of tags in such a way that one of them is H1, second one is paragraph, third one is H2, and fourth one is ordered list, and fifth one is a table row. So in that way, if you select multiple tags, different dissimilar tags, then uh, this is nothing but the meaning of class selector. So this class selector can be used to apply same kind of style for multiple different types of tags, multiple but different types of tags. You want, you can apply for all the same tags also. There is no restriction that you cannot apply this style for same different types of tags, same type of tags, right? You can apply it for all same tags, or also you can apply it for different types of tags also. Then coming to the group selector, so this group selector, it is actually a combination of all these tags, that all these selectors that we have done seen so far. So as the name indicates, the group selector, what it does is, it is going to create a style for multiple tags. It is going to create style for multiple tags, but those tag names, the selector names may be uh, elements or even something else. Right? So what we can do, I'll show you an example here. Say I want to create same style for paragraph tag. I want to create a same style for H1 tag. I want to create a same style for ordered list tag. Okay. So in that way, if I want to create, then I have to mention the tag names like this in place of that selector name. Each tag name must be separated by a comma, right? And then open the brace and close the brace and give whatever properties you want to give. Their property names and values can be given below this, like this. Now what is this selector called as? It is a group selector. The selector name contains group of tag names. It doesn't contain a single tag name or a single ID name or a class name. Instead, it contains multiple tag names. So one of them is paragraph, another one is H1 heading tag, another one is ordered list tag. So in that way, you can group any number of tag names here in the name in place of this selector. But each of those tag names that you give here must be separated by a comma. Okay, fine. So this is a group selector. And then coming to universal selector, fifth one. If you want to apply same style for all the tags in your HTML document, then you have to use this universal selector. Instead of mentioning any name of the tag or an ID name or a class name as the name of the selector, you have to use an asterisk symbol here, the star symbol, so which indicates that all the tags in your HTML page, irrespective of what type of tags they are, whether it is a paragraph tag or a H1 heading tag or a H2 heading tag or a table tag or a ordered list or unordered list tag, any tag, all those tags will be applied with the same style that you create under this universal selector, right? So now that you understood what is a element selector, what is a group selector, what is a ID selector, and what is a class selector, then what is a universal selector. So let me give you an example program and show it to you, which will cover all these selectors. So for my convenience, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use uh, internal styling. So you know what is inline styling, what is internal styling, and what is external styling. Let me use inline styling, internal styling. Let us not use inline styling here. So in this head tag, as you know, you can create a title tag. I'll mention here types of selectors, title, and you know where to create inline style, right? So in the head tag, you have to use a tag called style tag. Open it, close the style tag again. Then in between this style opening and closing tag, here you are supposed to write uh, the selectors, right? Now, for example, I'm going to create a element selector for paragraph. Let me create it for H1 of paragraph because paragraphs are larger, so it's difficult for me to type the content of a paragraph. Let me take a H1 tag. So for this, I'm going to give background color, let's say Roger blue, and foreground color. Color property refers to the foreground color or the text color. So you need not mention text color. You simply have to mention color as a property name. And remember one important thing: property names are predefined. You cannot change their names as you wish. They are not user defined. They are predefined. So you need to know their spelling exactly. Don't use color of spelling as COLOUR. So you have to use COLOR color, right? And a hyphen here in between background and color is mandatory. So if you remove this hyphen and simply write background color without any space or with space also, this property will not be applied for the tag that you are creating, right? So by default, this text color will be in black color. So let me change it to white color because the background color is now becoming uh, blue color. So if I use black color, it may not be visible properly. So I'm using white color as text color. So now, once I create this element selector here, let me save this program. Selectors.html, where I'm going to store on my desktop. I have a folder for WD, in that CSS. So I'm saving here selector.html, selectors.html. So let me also open that file. So this is page. So let me create a heading here. Now this heading I'll give element selector here. Refresh it. So now you see the element selector is created. The heading is element selector and its background color is given in dodger blue color, and the foreground text color is displayed in white color, right? And if you want to use some other properties, let us now discuss about different types of properties. First of all, let us know how to apply element selector, how to apply ID selector, how to apply uh, class selector, universal selector, and group selector first. And then let us explore all different properties. So I'm just using two properties as of now because our focus will be on different types of selectors and how to use them in our program. So after knowing how to use these selectors, different types of selectors in our HTML program, then we'll shift our focus to various properties that are provided and what is the meaning of those properties and what are different possible values for each property. So what do you mean by possible values means, for example, you take this property, the property name is background color, right? So it has a predefined name and you should not change that name. And this is dodger blue, which is the value. So you know that property name and values both are separated by a colon symbol in between them, right? So this is the value. So how many values are possible here? Here I have written one value, but what are the other values possible? All the color names that you have in HTML colors, everything is possible. It can be a hexadecimal code or it can be a direct name like blue, green, red, yellow, orange, all these things, all these colors, right? So all the color names are nothing but possible values for this property background color. So similarly for this color property also, white is nothing but the one of the possible values. So it can all the color names are also possible values for this color property. So in that way, every property that you are going to choose in this selector will have some set of possible values. For some of them you may have hundreds of values. For some of them you may have only one or two values. So that way, depending on the property name you choose, they may have one or more multiple possible values. So let us not discuss about those all those different types of properties you have, property names you have, and their values now, because our focus must be how to apply this element selector in a HTML program, right? So we have applied this one for this element selector, right? So now I'm going to create another h1 tag, right? And here I'm going to mention again element selector only, but because this is another HTML tag, so I will mention another element selector. Let me refresh this page. So now one more heading is created, and under that heading, what is the heading content? Another element selector. In this way, you create some 100 h1 tags in your page. All those 100 h1 tags will be applied with the same style. So what do you mean? What is the meaning of this element selector is? So your element selector will be having a name exactly matching with the any of the HTML tag names. So in this case, in our example, it is matching with the h1 tag. So in that way, how many h1 tags you use in your program, all those h1 tags will be applied with the same style. So if you create another h2 tag instead of h1, if I create say h2 tag, then this h2 uh, will give here heading, h2 heading. Let me refresh this page. So that heading is created, but is that style applied for this h2 heading? It is not applied, right? So it will be applied only for those tags which are having the name as h1. So it's exactly matching with the selector. So if I want to apply the style for h2, then I have to create here another style. For h2 also, if I create here with some different background colors, so instead of Dodger blue, let me give another color called sea green. Then look at this heading. So this heading has a different background color, but the foreground color is same. Why? Because I've given the color attribute, color property value as white, right? Fine. So this is how element selector can be used in your HTML document. So now let us go to group selector first, because I want the same style now to apply to be applied for both h1, h2, h3, all h3 heading tags. Then I can remove this, and here after h1 I'll give h2 comma h3 comma h4 comma h5 comma h6. Okay. So after that I'm going to create all the different different heading tags here. Because already we have created h1 tag, let us not create that h1 tag. So I'll create h3, 4, h5, and h6. H3. Now all the 6 different headings are applied with the same style. So how this is possible? With the help of group select. So this is an example for group select. So now I'm grouping 6 different h1 h heading tags. Each of the tag is separated by a comma symbol. After h1 you give a comma, then mention the second tag h2, then comma, then third tag name. So it is not necessary that you give only heading tags here. You can give any versatile tags This you can give paragraph tag, one of them as paragraph tag. If you want to apply the same style for even paragraph tag, you can mention p tag also. If you want to apply the same style for say anchor tag also, you can give anchor tag, or OL tag also you can mention that. So create paragraph here. We display this is paragraph. Then even this paragraph also will be applied with the paragraph. So even this paragraph is also applied with the same style. But you are able to see uh, the size with which the line background color is applied for different heading tags is different, because it depends on the size of that heading. So this is a H1 heading, this is H2, so it will be a little bit small. This is H3, so this will be a little bit small, right? So this is H6, so it will be the smallest one. But coming to a paragraph, it will be fixed, right? The size of each every paragraph will be fixed. So you create how many paragraph tags, all those paragraph tags will have the same size. So I'll write this is another paragraph. Okay, this is H5, this is H4, this is H3. Okay, fine. So now that you understood what are group selectors, let us now move to the other selectors called ID selectors and class selectors, okay, and universal selector. So first we'll see ID selector. So what is the syntax for ID selector? An ID selector name must precede with a hash symbol. Okay, I'm going to create my style as I did in the example shown for you previously. I'm going to create a style. Create the style instead of dodger blue. I'm going to use tomato color, and foreground color is white color. Now, to whichever tag I apply, say I want to apply this style only for one tag. So, ID selector must be used to apply the style only for one particular tag in many tags available in your program. So, you choose any one of those tags. Say I want to apply it for H4 tag, or say H3 tag, because H3 is not too small or not too big also. So, here I have to use what attribute? ID attribute. And for this, what must be the value? Whatever name I have given for the selector there, same value I have to give to my style. So if you are having any confusion in the spelling and everything, you just copy the selector name that you created, just paste it here, so that you will not have any confusion. Now, only this H3 selector, H3 heading, this one will be applied with this style. See, the H3 heading is applied with that style. Background color is tomato and foreground color is white color. So this is ID attribute. But don't try to use the same ID attribute value for, even if you try to use it also, this will work. So that is the reason I'm asking you. I'm applying it now for H4 also. Even if I use for H4 also, this is applied, right? But the purpose of an ID selector is to select only uniquely one HTML tag and apply that style for only that particular HTML tag. So never try to use this ID attribute value same for more than one HTML tag. So use it only for one HTML tag. Don't use it for multiple HTML tags. So if you use it, there is no difference between other selectors and this ID selector. So try to use it, always use it only for one HTML tag, right? Then coming to the class selector, so you have to precede the selector name with a dot. So for this, I'm going to give, say, my class as the selector name, and same thing. Syntax is same, only the selector syntax will change. Selector name syntax will change. The symbols will be preceded with either hash or dot symbol. For this, I'm going to give, say, sea green color, background color. Now I want to apply this for more than one tag. Right? So what attribute you need to use? You have to use class is equal to what is the selector name I created? My class. I want to copy this, select this and copy this and apply for this h5 tag and also one paragraph tag, say this one. So let me refresh it. Now h5 heading is applied with background sea green color and foreground white color. Similarly, second paragraph is also applied with the same background sea green color and foreground text color. So one thing you must have noticed in all these styles that we created, whenever a tag is created, the tag background color is spanning from the left border of your screen to the right border of your screen. It is not completed by once the content of the HTML tag is completed. So the content here is element selector. So this is starting at the left border and ending here itself, right? So you may think that the background color must be applied only till here, but it is not so, because your HTML heading tag that you created will have a span from the left border of your screen till the right border of your screen. That means it is going to occupy complete 100% width of the screen. Okay, so if you want to change this to only this particular place here, then you can use some properties. You have some properties called width property and height property. So you can mention the width and height properties so that the tag will have will span only with that particular width and height. But by default, it is going to occupy complete width of the screen. Any tag you take, the paragraph tag or H1 heading tag or any tag you take, that will be spanning from complete left border to the right border, right? So this is class selector. And coming to the universal selector, so if you use a universal selector, so how to create a universal selector? Use a star. It doesn't have any name. Selector will not have any name. It will simply have a star symbol followed by a brace opened and closed. Now let me use the same properties here. Background color. Now I'll change this background color. Instead of sea green, I'll change it to teal color and foreground color as white color. Now let me refresh it. Now you are able to see we have used a universal selector. So this selector will apply this background color for all the HTML tags that you have used in your HTML document, including this body tag, including the body tag. Because we didn't mention any background color for this body tag, so the universal selector, whatever you have created, so that selector's background color and foreground color are applied for this body tag. So that is the reason why you're noticing, except those H1, H2, H3, H4, all these tags that we use, the remaining space with body background color is changed to teal color. Am I right? You are able to notice that, right? So for any of these tags, if you are not using this, say I'm not using this ID attribute, I'll remove this ID attribute for this H3 tag. Now for this H3 tag also, same thing will apply. But because you already have a group selector with background color Dodger blue for all H1 to H6 tags, that is the reason why H3 tag is applied with the Dodger blue background color. So when you are having multiple styles here, you are having for H1 till H6 a background color Dodger blue. At the same time, you are also having universal selector for which background color is teal color. So among these universal selector and this group selector, which one will be given the priority means group selector will be given the priority, right? So that is the reason, even though you have universal selector for H3 heading, the background color is chosen from which one? The group selector, right? Now if this group selector is not there, this group. I'll remove H3 from this group selector. Then at this one, so the background color for this H3 heading is given as teal color. Universal selector is applied. If I add this H3 here, then which will be applied, the group selector is applied. So if you have two options, out of this we will give priority to the group selector. But at the same time, instead of if I use an ID attribute, for example, for this H3, I'm going to use ID. ID is equal to my style. Is this the name I've given? Yes, I think, right? I'll refresh it. Now, what is the background color applied? Tomato color. So, if you are having both universal selector, you are having group selector, and you are also having ID selector, which one will be given preference? ID selector is going to be given preference. Okay, so when you have multiple options, among those multiple options, which one will be better, that one you are going to choose, right? So the priority will be given for ID selector first, and if ID selector is not there, then group selector will be used, and if group selector is also not there, then universal selector will be used, right? Fine. Let us now create a separate style for H3 tag, for example. So I'm going to use a element selector instead of group selector. Let me use element selector. So for this, I'm going to give uh, background color. I'll remove it. So this will be by default white. If I don't mention background color, by default it will be white color. If I don't mention the text color, by default it will be black color. You know. So even though I created a element selector for H3 tag, what style is applied for H3 tag? ID selector style is applied. My style ID selector is applied, right? If I remove this H3 from ID selector from H3 tag, now let me show it. So which one is applied? Dodger blue background color. That means what? Group selector is applied. So even though you have an element selector, so that will not be given preference. Only group selector will be given. So top priority goes to ID selector. Then the next priority goes to the group selector, and then the next priority goes to the universal selector, then group simple element selector, right? So for this H3 you are able to see dodger blue, right? So let me remove this dodger blue background for H3, the group selector. Now let me refresh it. What is the color applied? Universal selector color is applied, right? So that means what? Even though you have a element selector, that element selector is not given priority. First priority is given for this one, right? So that is, sorry, the first priority is given for ID selector. If ID selector is not there, then the next priority goes to group selector. Even if group selector is not there, then the next priority goes to the universal selector. And if this universal selector is not there, then the priority will be given for element selector. So the least priority goes to which selector? Element selector. The highest priority goes to the ID selector. And when you have an ID selector, you cannot have a class name. Right? So that means what? Uh, use for H3, ID is equal to my style. And also I use class. What is the class name we created? My class, right? So let me copy this. So when you have both ID and class, which one will be applied? Which is applied? ID is applied. Right? Now let me remove this ID. Use which is applied? Class is applied. So right. So the top priority goes for ID. Next priority goes for class. And then the next priority goes for group. And the next priority for universal. And finally, last priority goes to the which one? element selected. So the priority will be in an order, like at the top you have ID, then you have class, then after class you have group, then after group you have universal, and finally after universal the element selector. This is the priority. If there is only one kind of selector available for the tag, then only that will be applied. If there are multiple, then comes into picture the this something called priorities, right? So similarly in inline styling and internal styling, if for a tag both inline styling is available and internal styling is also available, and also external styling is also available, then in that case inline styling will be given priority. If inline is not available, then next priority goes for internal. If internal is also not available, then finally it goes to external styling. So in that way, in different types of styling, inline, internal, and external, priority, highest priority goes to inline styling, second priority goes to internal styling, and third priority goes to external styling. And coming to types of selectors, top priority goes to ID selector, second priority goes to class selector, and third priority goes to group selector, and fourth priority goes to the uh, universal selector, and last priority, the fifth priority, goes to element selector. These are the priorities. So don't create multiple styles for a single type of tag, because you'll have a confusion in it. So always in creating a real-time application, do not use multiple selectors for multiple styles for a single particular HTML tag. Okay. So now that you understood different types of selectors, that is element selector, group selector, ID selector, class selector, and universal selectors. The next thing is you know how to use them also, right? So the next thing that you need to do is how to what are the properties available for different tags. So some of the properties are common for all the HTML tags. For example, background color is a common property. This can be used for any HTML tag, right? And this color white color property also can be used for any HTML tag. But there will be some certain properties in selectors that can be used only for a particular HTML tag, for not but not for all the other tags. Some of them can be used for multiple tags but not all tags, right? Some of them can be used only for a specific tag. They cannot be used for other tags. In that way you will have different properties. Let us see. There are some thousands of properties. It is difficult, some if not thousands, at least hundreds of properties will be there. But out of those 100 properties, let us explore some most commonly used properties. At least some 20 to 30 properties I'm going to use and show with some examples, so that we'll have an extensive coverage of all these CSS concepts. And in the next class, first what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a new topic called divisions. You can create divisions in a HTML page. That means just like using frames, how you created multiple partitions in a HTML page using frame set tag and frame tag. Using another tag called div tag, division tag, we can create multiple partitions by taking the help of this CSS cascading style sheets along with the division tag. But you cannot open multiple HTML pages in a single window like you do it with frames. The divisions will be created. Each division will be having a different background color and different texts, and you can confine the content into that particular division only. So see that yeah, the content in that division will occupy only that particular region. So that we are going to see next. And after completing the division concept, then we'll explore all the different properties and their values that we can use for at least 2 more classes. So totally I'll take 3 more classes to wind up this cascading style sheets. Okay, fine. So let us meet in the next class. So you can now, I'm ending this session. You can leave the session. Please, I request all of you to text your roll numbers on WhatsApp once again, because that Google Meet connection is having some trouble. I couldn't get your roll numbers from that message. Please, I request all of you to text your roll numbers, those who are present for the session, in the WhatsApp, so that I can give attendance for you.